When I was a little boy in New Zealand, I would do these colouring in competitions trying to win a trip to Disneyland so I could come to America. And now I'm here, living in America, and I'm so close to achieving my dream, I can hardly believe it. See, most people in New Zealand get to do their overseas experience, and a lot of us go to England, a lot go to Australia. I wanted to go to America. So, once I'd spent 6 months or so in England, then I had the opportunity to come back to America. I stopped in San Francisco, which I'd always wanted to walk the Golden Gate Bridge. Fell in love with the city, then decided to do the wine trip up this world famous Napa Valley that I'd heard so much about. Did that and found myself in Healdsburg, and I'm sitting in the square and I'm eating my very first burrito, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is it. This is where I want to be. Just across the road there's a cute little bakery, so I got to experience my first American bakery. And quite honestly, I was a little disappointed because there was no meat pies, no sausage rolls. There was nothing familiar to the New Zealand bakery. So once I arrived back in New Zealand, there was two things I really wanted to do: learn how to bake New Zealand products and get back to America. I already had a job in a bakery before I even arrived back in New Zealand. My brother's good buddy, he hired me. And also I actually talked to the company that sold the grape harvesters and said, hey, I want to go back to America. Is there any job openings? Which there was, and that's originally how I ended up coming back here. So I'm back in the wine industry, I'm back in California, loving it, working over here, and what happens? I meet this girl, Bobby Ann.
When I first met Warren, I was in a position in my life where I thought I was going to be single forever, and I was kind of sworn off men. We sort of got set up by some friends, and I thought, okay, he's kind of cool to pal around with, but there was nothing serious. And then in a matter of 6 months, we sort of started talking about where this could go. And he basically said to me one day, let me take you to New Zealand and show you what a beautiful place I come from. And my family thought I lost the plot because I put everything I owned in storage and left. So Warren left the United States, and I followed him about a week later to New Zealand. We couldn't get on the same flight. And I was terrified. I was terrified flying into this strange country with this beautiful man that I was madly in love with, and terrified he wasn't going to be at the airport, which was totally ridiculous because he was there with roses and very romantic.
So we're back in New Zealand. Bobby and I are in New Zealand. We're living in Hawke's Bay. I'm working in 2 different bakeries. The both of us wanted to learn as much as we could about baking in New Zealand because we want to open a bakery. And so she couldn't work because she didn't have a visa. So I said to her, well, let's get married. So we did. We eloped and got married in Wellington.
So working with Warren at the bakery in New Zealand was totally different than the vineyard life. The vineyard life was something that he grew up in and he did enjoy and had a passion for, but when he went into the bakery, his eyes lit up in this way that I'd never seen before.
So Bobby and I both worked in the bakery in New Zealand. I did predominantly all the baking out the back, and she did all the cosmetics.
I would do all of the decorative stuff that had to do with creaming the donuts and icing the Chelsea buns and, sales, running the counter and that sort of thing. And I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
So after almost 3 years in New Zealand, the harvester company called me up and wanted me to go back to Healdsburg where they'd sold a harvester. So I jumped at the chance to do it. Worked the harvest, got offered a full-time job working for the company. 6 months later, we moved everything from New Zealand back to California. We bought a house, we started a family, we got a dog, we got an SUV, all the good stuff. And 10 years later, I still felt there was something missing.
He was very unhappy in his job for a while, and it was really hard to watch, and really hard to watch him come home without that sparkle in his eyes. And so to see him pull out the flour bin, and it's always right after I've cleaned the kitchen, of course, so it drives me up the wall, but he has so much fun. He enjoys it. He enjoys teaching our son how to bake, and he wants to show anybody that comes over. He's like, hey, let me show you how to make stuff, and he just has so much fun. And he had said for years, well, sometime around when I'm 40, I think I want to open the bakery. And we had talked about it as this vague, far-off, one-day thing we would do.
When they wanted to start having a bakery, I didn't think they were actually going to. I thought they were just joking.
And Bobby and I were kind of talking about it and messing around, and I'm looking online to see if there's any bread baking courses, and this one pops up, the San Francisco Baking Institute. They had one spot left for their full 5-month baking course. And I just looked at her and said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I need to do it. So I did it. So I get accepted into the course, I pay for the course, and my first day, I leave here at 4:45 in the morning, driving on 101, driving down in the dark, thinking to myself, what the heck have you just done? You've just quit a wonderful job in the wine industry and you're going to learn how to bake bread. I just felt sick to my stomach. And, you know, within 2 hours of getting there and meeting my classmates, I knew that this was totally the right decision. So while I was at the baking school in San Francisco, I learned artisan bread, which consisted of, you know, making baguettes, sourdough, all the German breads. And then we moved on to pastry. I learned how to make danishes and puff pastry, French croissants, real butter croissants, which was pretty exciting. I mean, not many people at 40 years old can go and spend 5 months learning how to bake bread, and that's what I did. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I just loved every minute of it.